it's John from Heroes and Legends, and the Hour of Devastation preview show has just ended a little bit ago, and we've seen a pretty nice set of cards from this particular preview. Wide range of different things. We got to see a lot of the mechanics. A lot of the cards we saw are kind of like your limited fare, and that's fine, like some of your commons and uncommons. We'll go over all the cards, but there's some really good ones in here too. You see one of the invocations, as a matter of fact, on the screen here. Now, quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to help support the channel. It's always appreciated. One way is our Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases via any links there to the sellers on Amazon, a small percentage will come back to help support the channel. Secondly, our Patreon page is also linked below. I always appreciate anyone who takes the time to check those out. Now that that's out of the way, let's look at the cards. And we'll start off with white. We'll go through the color pie, beginning with Angel of the God Pharaoh. 2 white and 4. It's an angel, uncommon, 4/4 with flying, and cycling 2. Not a lot to say about this card. I mean, this is a fine sealed / draft card, basically. I wouldn't mind playing it in those limited formats, and yeah, I don't like paying 6 for a 4/4 flyer. I'd rather pay 5, but I got the option to cycle it away, and that's just good enough. Next we have Hour of Revelation. This one's interesting. 3 white and 3. This is a rare sorcery. It costs 3 less to cast if there are 10 or more non-land permanents on the battlefield. Destroy all non-land permanents. So first off, let's talk about your limited game, whether it's draft or sealed. I feel like this is just a good panic button in limited just in general. I'm always happy to have a card like this just in case I'm falling behind and I need to fall back on something. Now, this might not always be the easiest thing to cast, asking for the 3 white, even if there are a lot of permanents on the battlefield. Sometimes just the 3 white can be difficult depending on your deck and your mana base, but if you can swing it, I think this is a good insurance policy to have in your deck. Beyond that, I do think it could see some play maybe in standard, perhaps out of sideboards, but could you imagine being up against, say, like a token deck or just any deck that's trying to go wide, and you pull this out on like turn 4 or 5 or something like that? It could get pretty crazy, right? And I'm not even starting to think about multiplayer. Like, think about Commander. It's very easy to get to a point in the game when there's 10 downland permanents on the battlefield. You can just wipe everything out if you need to. So this is a very versatile card. The art on it looks beautiful too. I think this will be amazing looking foil. It is the first story spotlight card. Just want to point that out too. But yeah, I was very impressed with this one. Steadfast Sentinel. This one is a white and 3 human cleric. It's a common with vigilance 2/3, and it has the elusive Eternalize. So we finally find out what Eternalize does. For 2 white and 4 on this card, you exile it from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie human cleric with no mana cost. And of course, you Eternalize only as a sorcery. So they spoiled the promo a few days back that had the cat that had Eternalize and double strike and was a 1/1 for 2. And a lot of us were guessing and making a lot of crazy speculation as to what we thought Eternalize was. And I read some really cool ideas on the comments section and on message boards and stuff. But this one is still good, but it kind of feels like Megamorph to me. Like we had back in Khans of Tarkir block when they gave us Morph and that returned, and then later on we got Megamorph and didn't really feel that different. That's what I feel like about this. But I do like Embalm, and I kind of like where they're going with this. The dark version of Embalm. Of course, the creature becomes a black creature instead of a white creature, and still a zombie. It plays into those tropes, and it's just bigger this time around. So it's interesting, and I'm kind of sad that maybe some of the ideas I read in the comments section that I thought were really cool we're not going to see, but I'm okay with this. As far as the card itself goes, yeah, it's a fine limited choice. 4-drop, 2/3 with the Eternalize and Vigilance. Yeah, I don't necessarily see this getting a lot of play in like standard or anything, but I'd be happy to play it in my sealed pool or draft it somewhere in the middle of a pack. Accursed Horde. This one costs a black and 3. It's a zombie 3/3. If you pay a black and 1, target attacking zombie gains indestructible until end of turn. So that includes itself. I mean, you can pay the 2 to make it indestructible. It's a nice little mana sink. It can be annoying in a game of limited. I think right now the zombie decks that we've seen are so tight, I don't know if they necessarily need something like this in the 4 spot. Feels like a little too expensive. Those decks are just too streamlined at this point, but it's fine in limited, definitely. Again, good middle of the pack pick, maybe in draft, and definitely playable and sealed. Carrion Screecher. Here's another zombie. A black and 3, 3/1 zombie bird with flying. And you do have to take into account with these zombie cards, there are cards, and we already seen them in Amonkhet, of course, that will bolster zombies and make them better. So sometimes the evaluation of these cards is just better based on what's around it or what you draft, right? The card itself, if you don't count any sort of +1/+1 or anything like that, it's a 3/1 flyer for 4. It's not super exciting, but you know what? Sometimes in sealed, a 3/1 flyer can do a lot of work for you. It's fragile, it might not live long, but if your opponent doesn't have an answer for it, it can get some damage across. So I'm usually happy to play something like this, and sometimes it overperforms. Kenra Eternal. This is a black and 1 2/2 zombie jackal warrior with Afflict 1. And the Afflict ability, which we saw a few days ago, whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 1 life. So it's a way to still get damage across if you need to, even if that creature is blocked. Now, this one, not super exciting, but you know what? In the limited world, you need 2 drops, whether that's draft or sealed. 2 drops are the meat and potatoes of your deck a lot of times. So having some good 2 drops or even some mediocre 2 drops are just a necessity of the game. This is one of those 2 drops that isn't going to be my first choice, but I'll probably find myself playing it in limited more often than not. Marauding Bone Slasher, a black and 2 zombie minotaur 3/3. This can't block unless you control another zombie. Pretty nice aggro limited card, I think. It simply is a 3/3 for 3 on its own, and you can just start attacking him pretty quick. I do like that. And again, it is a zombie, so sometimes it will be able to attack in as even something bigger or have other abilities. And I do like that in certain draft pools, right? Especially, and even sometimes sealed. But as far as the card goes beyond that, this is another one I feel like it's maybe a little outclassed by what's already out there for zombies at this time. But hey, definitely, again, another good card that I'd be happy to play in limited. Alright, Chandras Defeat. This comes to us from a Portuguese language spoiler. And this actually came out a little bit earlier in the day. This is a card they didn't show at their presentation this evening. But I feel like it should have come out a little bit earlier with the other 4 defeats, and we did a video on those this morning, so I'll link it at the end of this video if you want to check it out, but I'll kind of go quick through this one. Basically, cost a red, it's an instant, deals 5 damage to target red creature or red planeswalker, and if it was a Chandra planeswalker, you may discard a card and then draw a card, so you get to rummage. So, yeah, these cards, they're decent sideboard cards and limited. Once you know your opponent's on a certain color, they're super economical. And, I mean, this one's great. It's an instant doing 5 damage to a red creature. If there's a problematic red creature in game 1, yeah, I'm going to sure side this in game 2 if I'm in red and be real happy with it, right? So I think that's really where these fit in. Now, like I said this morning, there could be some point in their lifetime in Standard that they see play out of sideboards. If there's a Chandra that's really problematic in the meta, or if there's just a good red creature that's problematic, this could show up in Standard sideboards, just like any of the other 4 cards. They all could at some point fit that role. But for the most part, I think these will just be limited sideboard cards, but good ones. Don't forget they're in your pool. Next we have Defiant Camera. This is a red and 1 Jackal Warrior 2/2 common. Not too much more to say about it. Again, if you need a 2-drop, it's going to be there for you in either sealed or draft. Gilded Ceradon. This one's a red and 4 4/4 beast. When this attacks, if you control a desert or there is a desert card in your graveyard, target creature can't block this turn. Okay, deserts are a lot better this time around. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a few seconds. I actually kind of want to play with them because there's really some strong synergies with some of these creatures, and this is a perfect example of that. Now, even the deserts from Amonkhet, I wasn't super thrilled with any of those really, but if I had some of these creatures where deserts matter, I can see myself maybe playing one of those now. And they have a better purpose than they did when Amonkhet stood alone, I think. But regardless, you'll see some of the other deserts in just a second. But this card is great. I mean, I'm happy to play this. If I got a desert either in play or in the graveyard, then target creature can't block this turn when this attacks. That's kind of awesome. And it's a 4/4 for 5. I'm real happy to pick one of these up. It's a common. You'll see them floating around the draft, so keep an eye out for them. I really like this one for limited. Inferno Jet, a red and 5 sorcery. This is an uncommon. It deals 6 damage to target opponent, cycling 2. It's okay. I mean, in Limited, I'd probably play one of these and be okay with it, especially if I'm in a really hyper-aggressive aggro deck, because sometimes it is hard to close off games when you have a lot of small creatures and small burn spells. So having something like this late game to just finish off an opponent is not the worst thing in the world, or at least get them down low enough that you can finish them off with a risky attack that you wouldn't be able to necessarily do if they had a higher life total. So it's good for those purposes, but I don't see it really doing too much more than that. I also like the cycling, so in a pinch, if you don't need it, then you can also cycle it away. Kenra Scrapper, a red and 2 Jackal Warrior, Menace 2/3, and if you exert it, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Another nice little beater for Limited. I mean, not much to say about it. It's got a lot going on for 3 mana, though. 2/3 Menace plus the exert ability. Happy to play it. Open Fire, a red and 2 instant. This is a common. It deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So here we are. Lightning Bolt costs 3 now. So I guess the question is Lightning Bolt at 3 a bad card? And I think the answer is no. I think this is still very standard playable. I think it's going to be a great card. It's versatile. 3 to a creature or 3 to your opponent's face. You know what? You're going to grind your teeth a little bit, maybe paying 3 for that. But at the same time, you're still going to do it because the card's still good. Sand Strangler, a red and 3 beast. It's an uncommon 3/3. When this enters the battlefield, if you control a desert, or there's a desert in your graveyard, you may have this deal 3 damage to target creature. Another card I really like, great interaction with these deserts. A 3/3 for 4, that's just fine and Limited, but you have this extra ability stapled onto it too. Really like this one. I could see this as a high draft pick, actually. Oasis Ritualist, a green and 3 Naga Druid 2/4. I can tap to add mana of any color to your mana pool, or you can tap and exert to add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. This one's a common. So we get a different take on exert now. So it's not just about attacking. This time you can use an activated ability and exert it. And it's a nice little color fixing mana ramp card. Now it costs 4. Like, I prefer mana ramp to be more like, well, I would prefer it to be 1, but realistically 2 nowadays, I guess, would be just fine. 4 starts to feel like at some point, do I even need the mana anymore? But it is good and Limited if you're going to try to fix or ramp into something big, especially in sealed. But even in draft decks, I think this is a good pickup. And it's got a nice size to it. It's a good blocker too at 2/4 for 4. Sidewinder Naga, a green and 2 Naga Warrior, common 3/2. As long as you control a desert or there is a desert in your graveyard, Sidewinder Naga gets +1/+0 in his trample. So this one I'm not as excited about as maybe some of the other ones, but it's still a very good Limited card. I mean, if it is a 4/2, a trample for 3, that's pretty economical. Granted, it might only attack in 1, so probably get blocked even if you do get a few points of damage across. But a lot of times a card like this could trade up. You're only paying 3 for it. A lot of times it could trade for maybe a 4 casting cost or 5 casting cost card. That's pretty good economy. Next we have our first split card. It's Grind to Dust. And I like this one. It's a rare. First portion is a black and 1 sorcery. Put a -1/-1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Dust, of course it has Aftermath, sorcery. You pay a white and 3. Exile any number of target creatures that have -1/-1 counters on them. So if you play this in one swoop, you can do this for a white, a black, and 4. Throw a couple counters on a couple of creatures, and then take those 2 creatures out, even if there's nothing else going on with counters. It actually feels pretty good to me and Limited for sure. And if I have a strategy where I'm tossing around -1/-1 counters, this card of course becomes much better. Or sometimes the opponent may just be putting -1/-1 counters on their own stuff. We see that with a lot of Amonkhet cards. So if there is a chance that a -1/-1 themed deck can make it in the meta, this is definitely playable in that meta, I think, in Standard. But we got a long way to go to get there. But the raw power level's there. It's possible. Other than that, this is a great Limited card. Very high pick, maybe even first pickable. Next we have one of the gods, and this is actually really sweet. The Scorpion God, a red, a black, and 3 legendary creature god, mythic 6/5. Whenever a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, draw a card, pay a red, a black, and 1, and put a -1/-1 counter on another target creature, and then when this dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is actually pretty awesome. Now, first off, it's hard to deal with. I mean, gods a lot of times are because they're indestructible or what have you. This one's not indestructible. They're going with a different theme here. This time around, they're just persistent. They can die, but they come back to your hand, you cast them again, rinse, wash, and repeat, right? Now, sure, they can still be exiled, just like an indestructible god, but you're really making your opponent jump through hoops to deal with this thing, and if they can't deal with it, it's got a lot of power behind it. First off, 6/5 body, that's awesome. Great mana sink to toss around -1/-1 counters, and hopefully start getting rid of some of their creatures, which leads to card advantage for you. This is phenomenal. This will definitely see standard play. I think it's really good for what you're paying for it, and this is easily first pickable in draft. Bomb, opening, and sealed. I really like this card. A lot of fun too in Commander, maybe even a Commander. Alright, let's look at a couple of those deserts now. I don't know if they're going to be in all 5 colors. We saw cards that interact with deserts in red and green, and we got to look at the red and green deserts. Now, maybe it's a full cycle, maybe it's not. I guess we'll find out. But let's look at the 2 we know about. Desert of the Fervent. This one, of course, is a land desert common. Enters the battlefield tap. You can tap it for a red, or you can cycle it for red and 1. So, on its own, like, it's not anything super exciting. It's just a cycling land that comes into play tapped that only gives you 1 mana. 1 type of mana, I should say. But it interacts in a very positive way with some of the creatures we saw earlier. And today's really just one of the first big days of reveals. We're going to see so much more from this set. I just feel like this could be a really viable draft strategy, if nothing else. And here's the green one, Desert of the Indomitable. Alright, let's move on to some invocations now. And there's some good ones here. Blood Moon, classic modern staple. Really beautiful art on this with the Volos horns and kind of the broken pyramid. This looks really amazing, actually. And it looks like a river of blood or something going up to the pyramid. Fantastic. They just knock it out of the park with the art on some of these masterpiece cards, and this is no exception. So, really exciting card here. And another one, Damnation, with Nicol Bolas himself on it. Of course, we knew this would be one of the invocations. It just kind of had to be. So it's nice that they announced it pretty early on. But the art, again, is just incredible. Fantastic job. And initially, when I first saw invocations, I was a little disappointed, like a lot of people, mostly because the art's kind of collapsed. And I do have that regret. I wish this art was a little bigger because it's beautiful. But seeing these in person, they're actually quite striking the way they're foiled and everything. So I'm pretty happy with them. Next we have another invocation, and this is Desolation Angel. This one's just kind of interesting because it's never been reprinted. It was a rare in Apocalypse many, many years ago, and it never saw a reprint. Not in a promo card, not in another masterpiece or anything like that. It's just never been reprinted till now. So I always find that interesting when they find a card that's actually pretty decent that they can dig up that has never found another reprint. So it's an interesting inclusion, if nothing else. Having said that, those are the cards for today. And next week is the official start of the preview week. It's going to be a 2-week period, and we'll have videos every day that cards are previewed. We'll talk about what came out, give some quick analysis around them, and once we get a little bit closer to the actual set release, we'll do our set review as we always do. And this weekend, we'll also be doing our Market Watch. So definitely check that out if you have a chance. Until next time, thanks for watching, though. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.